Addiction. Is it moral failing, lack of willpower, or is it a disease? Addiction is a primary, chronic, and progressive condition with genetic, psychosocial, and environmental factors influencing its development and outcome. It involves compulsion, loss of control, and continued use despite negative consequences and other symptoms. There are two schools of thought on addiction. One is that it's a lack of willpower. People choose to use the drugs, and they therefore should be able to stop. The other is that addiction is a brain disease. Although the first use is normally voluntary, but who says, "Oh, let me use this drug so I can become an addict"? There are those that say that it's only a lack of willpower. If you turn up the willpower, you will be able to fight addiction. Those who cannot fight their addiction have something wrong with them, but it's only that they don't turn up the willpower. Maybe they're lazy or unmotivated. I will admit that a few years ago, this might have been my thought, but that was from a lack of education. I didn't know about all the pieces involved in addiction. Addiction is a brain disease. It is not a moral failing. It is not about bad people who are choosing to continue to use drugs because they lack willpower. Michael Botticelli. In an article written by Nora Volkow in 2015, she says the following: "I often compare drug addiction to another chronic, relapsing disease, diabetes. In diabetes, the pancreas is not able to make the insulin necessary for our cells to use glucose as fuel. No one thinks that with sufficient willpower, a person with this condition could push through without medication. Their disease, even if it had behavioral antecedents and may have involved free choice in the person's past, such as decisions about food and exercise, has a physical basis and requires medical management once it has developed. Drug addiction, despite decades of effort, still has not attained an equivalent level of social understanding. Just as the diseased pancreas cannot supply sufficient insulin, the brain affected by addiction cannot supply sufficient self-control, and the addicted person requires medical management, not judgment, to recover and lead a normal life." I highly recommend reading the full article, "Can the Science of Addiction Help Reduce Stigma?" by Nora Volkow. It was written in 2015 in the Advances in Addiction and Recovery. Here you can see a scan of a brain not using drugs, an abuser of 1 week and 3 months. All drugs affect the brain. They affect the reward system. So as you consume the drug, you're rewarded with floods of dopamine. Your other parts of your brain remember that sensation and they want to receive it again. Over time, you need more of the substance to get that same feeling. As I previously mentioned, there are other factors contributing to addiction: genetics, social environment, gender, poor social skills, mental illness, trauma and abuse, unstable family, ethnicity, and peer pressure can all be factors that can lead to addiction. Doesn't mean these things mean you have to be an addict, but they can lead to it. Over half of those with a drug addiction also have a mental illness. This is called co-occurring disorders. So not only are you fighting the drug addiction, but you're also fighting a mental illness. Many times, people start using substances to self-medicate the mental illness. There have been a lot of studies lately about genetics' role in addiction. Can you inherit being an addict? Can we just blame our genes? Not exactly. Although there has been evidence that a person can have inherited the likelihood or the vulnerability to be an addict. They have not pinpointed the exact gene. A statement from the addictionandrecovery.org website says, "You can become addicted to any drug if you have a family history of addiction. If at least one of your family members is addicted to alcohol, you have a greater chance of developing an addiction to other drugs, such as opiates, cocaine, or marijuana." I hope this brief overview has sparked the curiosity to go find out more. The National Institute on Drug Abuse has a lot of information on their website. I highly recommend taking a look there and seeing what's really going on in our country with drug abuse. There is hope for recovery. Recovery is a process of change through which individuals improve their health and wellness, live a self-directed life, and strive to reach their full potential.